areas, it's just really windy out in this area of the island so often that seeds aren't able to sit in one spot on the lava long enough to germinate with the high winds that we have out in this area of the island typically. So the exposed lava flows that we're coming to just up ahead, about 120 years old, 1906 flows came down through this area up ahead. More big old mangoes hanging up out over the highway on the left. More macadamia nuts on the left. Number one industry of this island is agriculture. Hawaii, Maui, Oahu, and statewide, the number one industry is tourism. But this island, the number one industry is agriculture. With all the coffee, macadamia nuts. Beef is actually our number one export from the island. Most of the ranching up north, but a little bit, just about anywhere around the island, we can see a little bit of ranching. A majority of it up the northern portion of the island, you'll see at the end of the day. Vegetation that we do see when we're making our way through these lava flows. And once again, about 120 years old, more than enough time for the forest to have redeveloped in greater numbers of vegetation. But it's so windy, things have a hard time. Seeds have to really get nestled down into a crack in the lava rock here. But once again, right, just like the roots of the mango orchard, everything we see today is growing right out of the lava like this. Roots very shallow right along the surface, smaller roots making their way down into cracks in lava. You come to an area like this, yeah, the lava's covered up, but not with soil, just other vegetation growing. Started showing up here all the time. They were few and far between for a few decades, actually. And there wasn't a whole lot going on across the Pacific yet. Yes, historically the Spanish had sailed the Pacific for centuries. But the west coast of North America was still all indigenous, right? The 13 colonies had just been formed. Right? There wasn't a whole lot going on. Some of the whaling was getting going on the Pacific Ocean. A little bit of trade between the Pacific Northwest, fur trade, and China specifically. But there wasn't a whole lot of sea traffic coming by these islands for quite some time. Now, this was a time of a big shift in the population of these islands. One, the Hawaiian population was being decimated by disease that was introduced by those that had visited here, Captain Cook and then others that came after. They carried germs and that the Hawaiians had absolutely zero exposure to, so zero immunity. And the Hawaiian population dropped from a minimum of well over 400,000, some estimates as high as 1 million, to less than 40,000 in less than 2 generations after the arrival of Captain Cook. Native Hawaiians have absolute disdain for Captain Cook. One of my favorite books on Hawaiian history, Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen, written by Queen Liliuokalani. She wrote it in the 1890s, nearly 120 years after the arrival of Captain Cook. And in her book, she writes of traveling from her palace on Oahu to the Big Island, with the sole purpose of her travels being to celebrate the site of Captain Cook's death. I found it fascinating how she phrased that. Now, does he deserve all the blame? Probably not, but he was the first to introduce diseases here, and the others that came after him knew these islands existed, thanks to him as well, so he does get the blame. And about this time, yes, the ships were few and far between, but each time one would depart, the population would go up a little bit. Right? Life on a ship is the hard life. It's really nice here. Not everybody got back on the ship. And these ships, they weren't coming to Kealakekua Bay. They weren't even coming to this island typically. There's a very easily accessible bay just off the coast of Oahu. So the southernmost point of this island is the southernmost point in the state of Hawaii. It is the southernmost point in the 50 United States. We are about 200 miles further south than Key West, Florida. Here, approximately the same latitude as Mexico City and Puerto Rico. That's South Point out there to the right. Yeah, Queen Liliuokalani traveled to Washington, D.C. She thought there was a big misunderstanding, and there was a precedent for this. In the 1840s, for a brief period, some believed that Great Britain had colonized the Hawaiian Islands, and a prince at the time traveled to Great Britain, spoke with the king, and it had been a big misunderstanding. Great Britain did not believe that they were occupying these islands. And so Queen Liliuokalani thought she just needed to go talk to the U.S. president, who was now McKinley. And he was much more of an expansionist than Grover Cleveland. But she still came back encouraged, right? She attended a dinner party the night before an annexation vote of these islands was taking place. And the annexation party believed they were close. Right? They had a president that was much more favorable to what they desired at this point. They thought they were 2 votes short and that they could convince a couple of politicians. southernmost bar in the USA is for sale, and currently the building being leased as a jerky business. So anybody that would like to own and operate the southernmost bar in the USA, all of those make sense to me, especially the bar. When it was open, there was a huge sign as you went by, southernmost bar in the USA. That's just good marketing. People will stop to say they had a drink at the southernmost bar. But cracks me up when I walk into Ace Hardware and there's a sign as I walk in the door, southernmost hardware store. Does anyone really care? But it's a cool little village here, not Alehu. And there's what was a bar until about a year ago. I believe they're hoping that someone reopens a bar in that area.
Have a bar here? Or is that it?
Not in this village. At the restaurant there, on a who they would have.
There's the Ace Hardware.
Yeah. As I briefly mentioned first thing this morning, our other hope here at Punaluʻu is that there are Honu up on the beach, relaxing, basking in the sun, so we can get a close-up view of them. The reason there's such a good chance we'll see the turtles here, because we see them all around the island. You can see the turtles in any bay when you're snorkeling. You can see them up on any beach around the island. But there's such a large amount of their food source in this bay because there's an underground fresh water feed into the bay. And the combination of that fresh water with the ocean water is ideal for the algae that the turtles eat. So that leads to there being an extra large amount of the turtles in the bay, a much better opportunity that we'll see some of them when they are up on the beach. Like I said, about 70% of the time that we're here, there's at least a couple of turtles up out of the water. Coming up just ahead is one of my favorite areas to drive here on the island. When my wife and I first moved here, she came down to this area, to this little village, a couple of days a week for work. And I wasn't doing these Circle Island tours yet. And I was very jealous of her getting to make this drive so often. Just up ahead, we're going to have a really good view of the lava rock shoreline that is very typical of this island. But from up above it, we have to drop down to sea level before we visit the beach. So here for a bit, we'll have a nice long stretch where we see the typically rough surf bouncing up off the lava rock shoreline. And in the distance, directly ahead of us, that is the summit of the most active volcano on the planet, Kilauea. Some of you are still looking for it. Some of you that realize you're seeing it are thinking, that's it? Yeah, Kilauea is 4,000 feet above sea level at its summit. It is a massive volcano. Over 22,000 feet high from its base to its summit, but its base over 18,000 feet beneath the surface of this ocean. So Kilauea is a time and a half the height of Pikes Peak in Colorado. But looking at it from a distance, only 4,000 feet at the summit above sea level, can appear to be a small volcano. It's actually very, our shoreline is this here, the lava rock shoreline. Knowing that we're going to be here 25 minutes at many of them. I let you know when we need to leave. Okay? I trust you. Trust you to make your restroom stops and such during the time we have in each stop and come back to the van when we need to leave. That way some of you aren't coming back in 15 minutes and sitting in the van for another 10 while we're waiting for everyone else. So it works out really well. We spend more time at our stops than the other drivers, and we'll still get done in the same amount of time today. And yeah, I don't tell you this to brag. I tell you it works really well. It works really well. So we are typically here at the beach for about 25 minutes, but I'll round up. We're not out of the van yet, so we should plan on leaving here at 11:10. Plan on leaving here at 11:10. Straight down the beach, the black sand, of course. Right behind us, the restroom. About halfway down is the area where turtles typically come up out of the water at the